UCF survives and advances, and the Beavers go down.
You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G, and thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. We're bringing you lots of great UCF content every single day. Again, I'm Mike G, and joining me, as he will after every UCF event, is my good friend Andrew Gluchov from The Last Word on Sports. UCF Knight extraordinaire. You've been covering UCF for a long time. Andrew, finally we get to talk about a win. The UCF Knights hang on. We're going to talk about the win, the keys to victory, and who we think the player of the game is for the UCF Knights. But let's start with the end. I want to talk about.
Oh man, a squeaker.
Oregon State calls a timeout right before what could have been the game-winning shot. A blunder on their part turned out to be a costly one as they go down to UCF. Before we get into the stats here, take me through that last sequence in your mind. It feels like this has been Murphy's Law for UCF. Finally, they're on the other side of it.
Oh yeah, UCF's had trouble closing out games. Falling apart in the second half. This looked like it was going to be history repeating itself. Nice big first half lead, and it just started melting away as the second half wore on. UCF changed their style. First half, a lot of moving the ball around, exactly what we said they had to do. Make the extra pass, find the open guy, and players that you would not have expected to step up did, which we talked about is a must for this game to be a win. Well, fast forward to the second half, everything reversed. You saw a lot more one-on-one. You saw a lot more driving, a lot of bad shot selections. And towards the end, when Darius Johnson missed that layup, it's a few seconds left on the clock. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. And then the timeout. I mean, wow. Just Mike, wow. When they blew the whistle, I thought it was a foul or something, and they said it was a timeout. And just we weren't at the arena. It's in Vegas. We're on the eastern side of the country. But I can imagine the collective air of the Oregon State fans completely deflating because the shot went in. They would have had the lead with just a few seconds to go, and UCF, would have been caught in a rough position. But sometimes your opponent it helps you, and lo and behold, coach calls a timeout, prevents that shot from going in, and they get another chance. It doesn't go in. Interesting no call on the box out by Chom.
Yeah, I like it though.
And
I like it.
I like it too. Well, obviously we like a little bias there. It could have gone either way, and the reason why I say that is UCF was victim to something like that against Duke, and it was a no call where there was a really rough box out, and it allowed Duke to get the offensive rebound and take the lead. So it can go one way or the other. I mean, it's, one man's trash is another man's treasure. UCF gets the benefit, moves on to the second round. But again, those 50-50 calls in the last seconds of a game, refs don't want to be the one determining. But you could say he flopped a little bit, but I mean, that arm was around, who was that? Louis.
Yeah.
And you could have made a legitimate case that was a foul. So you know what? The refs giveth, the refs taketh away.
Get away.
UCF squeaked out on this one with a 1-point win. Take it and run to the second round.
Again, we're going to get into some stats here in a second, but I do want to talk about the missed layup by Darius Johnson with 13 seconds left. It felt like it was going to be more of the same, right? He misses what could have been a game sealing layup that makes that next sequence kind of null and void. But he misses it, leaves the door open for Oregon State, and certainly that could have been a pivotal play in the game. But UCF pulls it out. Let's talk about how this game looked statistically on the court. They broke some statistical trends. Now they got they got more shots than Oregon State. They got up 8 more shots in this game, 67-59. But Oregon State shot at a higher percentage, 47% from the field. UCF was better from 3. Oregon State a pathetic 4 of 19 from beyond the arc. Andrew,
we've seen that before.
Yeah. About the shooting in this one, UCF was 10 of 26 from 3, 38%. From beyond the arc, and it feels like that could have been the difference here in this game.
Well, again, this is a tale of two halves. Let's break it down first half, second half, because the way the teams operated was just for UCF was incredibly different. First half, 18 of 37, that was 48%. That's really good. 8 of 19 for 3-point, that's 42%, and 1 of 2 from free throw.
Yeah.
And, that's uncharacteristic of UCF. Normally
only 2 free throws is ridiculous, by the way.
Yeah.
They got only 2 free throws. Give me a break.
Very uncharacteristic. The big thing was 13 assists in the first half. This was a team moving the ball around. Your leading scorer was Niles Mahovsky, 13 points, had 3 3-point shots made. Who was second? Tyler Hendricks, who hit double figures for the first time this season. He hit 2 3-pointers. So they were moving the ball rather well. Darius Johnson was cold in the first half, 2 of 7 from the field, 1 of 5 from 3-point range, only 5 points, did not get to the line at all. But as we said before, other players had to step up, and Hendricks and Mahovsky did. But you look at the second half, and those guys kind of started disappearing. Hendricks still scored 5 points, was opportunistic, but he wasn't nearly as dominant. And Mahovsky scored 2 points on a pair of free throws. But in the second half, as a team, UCF was 10 of 30 from the field. That's 33%. They were 2 of 7 from 3-point land. That's less than 29%. But they were 9 of 12 from the charity stripe, and that is more what we expect to see from UCF, which is a team that can slash, they can cut to the hoop. Darius Johnson, 5 of 6 in the line in the second half. And while he could not hit the broadside of a barn, without being fouled, when he got to the line, he delivered, scored 10 points in the second half, 2 of 9 from the field, 1 of 3 from long distance. What's interesting is you had 3 players end up with 15 points apiece for UCF. You had Darius Johnson, Hendricks, and Mahovsky. In the case of Hendricks and Mahovsky, both players have announced that they're going into the transfer portal.
Yeah.
So this was a great audition for them.
Andrew, remember, we talked about this yesterday, the significance of Johnny Dawkins allowing players who were entering the portal or had entered the portal to play in this game. They could make a decision to return to UCF still. I think it says something that they were willing to play for Johnny Dawkins in this game.
Well, again, it's a symbiotic relationship. The team needed players to play, and they needed to showcase themselves. They even talked about it on the broadcast on Fox Sports 1. Mahovsky, averages a little under 3 points a game, and he had 13 points in the first half. So this was an opportunity to showcase, hey, look, I now have a chance to shine and show what I'm really made of. So again, it's a win-win for both sides. Dawkins gets, the player on the court. Obviously he needs numbers. He played 8 players this game. He needs bodies. But these players who are looking to move to another school and utilizing that front-loading NIL opportunity, because once July 1st hits, that's it. You're in the new system. So players are bum rushing the portal. These lower echelon roster players, they need to prove themselves and give schools, prospective schools, something to chew on. In Oregon State's case, their top 3 scorers were gone. They announced they don't need to play. They weren't lower level fringe roster players trying to prove themselves. They already did. So much like Keyshawn Hall didn't play for UCF, Oregon State had a trio that were out, and it hurt them. But there's always going to be an opportunity for someone to step up. Oregon State did not play a terrible game. They went cold at the end. They did have a turnover problem the first half, but they tightened up in the second half. They got UCF away from what was working for them and started to devolve back into what got them into trouble and lose a lot of games during the season. Unfortunately, look what the next round has to. Before
we get to that, though, I do want to talk about. Again, you allow Mahosky and Hendricks to play in this game. That was 30 points. They were combined 11 of 17 from the field in this one. So impactful decision to let those guys play here, giving UCF fans the win. Obviously, Darius Johnson didn't have a great game, 4-16 from the field, but he did turn in 15 points as well. And obviously, Mustafa Cham, 4-14 from the field. But some big defensive play. He had 3 blocks on the day, 1 steal. He played 32 minutes. I was looking for Debo Coleman to have a bigger game than he had. 6 points, 2 of 4 shooting. He didn't take a ton of shots in this one. But he did snag 5 rebounds and turn in 3 assists here. Big win for UCF. They survive and advance. We'll preview their next game on another segment. But look, what were the keys to the game for UCF? We're going to talk about how they arrived at this victory in more detail right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out and shopping online and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where our friends at Monarch Money come in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you just stop managing your money and start building wealth. You get surprising insight. It's super convenient, and it's easy to collab with your partner. It's smoother than ever. You can track shared or personal accounts and stay on the same page without all the stress. Take control of your finances at Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. This episode of Locked On UCF is also brought to you by our friends at Gametime. Imagine watching your favorite team live and feeling the energy of the crowd, witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game in person. I can tell you, I've seen some big games in person, Andrew, just this last weekend in Atlanta, covering the NCAA tournament. I'll be in San Antonio for the Final Four, but you can be there too with our friends at Gametime. Getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. That's where Gametime comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last-minute seats at unbeatable prices. Gametime Picks curation makes it easier to find better value for tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, and theater. You've got easy ticket shopping, super deals, and a low price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. You get peace of mind knowing what your seat view is going to look like before you show up. You got no surprise fees and the low price guarantee. Again, you can book with total confidence. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. What time is it? Game time. Keys to the victory here. Obviously, score more points than the other guy, Andrew. UCF has not done that a lot over the last half of the season, but they did that. But 15 points from the bench. Bench production has been waning for the Knights. They found points from the bench. Now, 8 guys played in this one. 8 guys scored in this one. Benny Williams had 4 points and 14 minutes. That was the least amount of minutes any player that entered the game played for Johnny Dawkins tonight. But you had high usage by just about everybody in this game so far through this tournament. Now, 15 second chance points, 12 big offensive rebounds. To me, I'm looking at bench points and offensive rebounding. That's why, to me, that's why the Knights came out with the win today.
Yeah, well, I mean, part of that is there was a sequence where Mustafa Cham kept rebounding his own shot and trying again. And fourth time was the charm. I mean, he was just like on a spring. He just kept bouncing up. One of the big keys to this game, and we talked about how someone had to step up, and the truth is, almost everyone did, outside of Darius Johnson. Your big three: Darius Johnson, Mustafa Cham, and Jordan Ivory Curry. Every one of those other role or bench, those secondary players, every one of them outscored their season average. Every one of them. Hendricks and Mahovsky very low. Hendricks under 2 points a game, Mahovsky under 3 points a game. Outdid that. Benny Williams was just a hair under 4. He scored 4. Even Dior Johnson, who's only got 2 points and change a game, scored 8. He stepped in and got 6 points in the second half where it was sorely needed. The big failure here was Jordan Ivory Curry. From an offensive standpoint, let me preface that. From an offensive standpoint, obviously couldn't hit the side of a barn. He went 1 of 7 from the field.
1 of 7
overall.
from the field.
Scored 3 points overall. However, I would be remiss. He actually had the best plus minus on the team.
Whoa.
So that's got to be worth something. The fact that you got it was a plus plus 12 on the game. So the team did well when he was on the court, but he himself couldn't score to save his life. And you know what? That's okay if others are stepping up to the plate, and that's what was happening. Maybe he's not able to deliver. You move the ball around a little bit. Someone else does. That's the second point. The passing. 8. They had 13 assists in the first half. They only had 5 in the second, and they were sloppier. They only had 2 turnovers in the first half. UCF's not a big turnover like on the offensive side. They don't create a lot of turnovers for themselves. They usually just throw up bad shots, and that's what you start seeing in the second half. They were moving the ball, they were getting the extra pass, they were getting the open opportunity, and delivering. If you make that pass, you get that higher percentage shot versus shooting in coverage. Better chance of making it. Take your time. You have your set. Don't feel rushed. They started to feel rushed in the second half. They started maybe feeling a little bit of fatigue, and they got knocked off that game. We saw what Johnny Dawkins' ball is all about that we've seen historically in the first half of this game. And that's why they had the 9-point lead, and it looked like things were going to be really good in the second half. I mean, they were cooking. Unfortunately, other team adjusted real well, and UCF's offense regressed, and players out of position. This is, on the defensive side, one thing that drives me absolutely nuts is how Mustafa Cham ends up out of position so many, and this is youth. He's a freshman. He's young. He's got a lot of room to grow, a lot of room to improve his game. But I mean, on the defensive side, he is out of position a lot of times, and it leads to offensive rebounds, second chance points for the other team. He struggled in this game on defensive rebounds. He only had 2 defensive rebounds, and they were in the first half. So in the second half, he played 16 minutes and had no defensive rebounds, none. That's a red flag. You got to do something about that. But again, he's young. You're going to expect that kind of stuff out of a freshman. And as of right now, he hasn't announced that he's leaving. So until he says something, he's still at UCF. So the hope is that he's there to continue to develop his game and will be part of that bridge into next season.
You talked about the offensive regression. Again, they shot 48% from the field in the first half, only 33% from the field, doing it with defense. But they did get to the free throw line in the second half, 9 of 12 from the free throw line. Again, not a lot of whistles for UCF through the first half of the game, but getting 9 points, I'm telling you, from the free throw, like one of those things that flies under the radar here. Look, they've got a tough game coming up. If they can duplicate the first half efficiency, right, and not have the second half regression, I think they've got a shot. Cincinnati is up next. Let's take a look at the bracket here before we move on. UCF in the inaugural Crown basketball tournament. There's NIL money on the line, Andrew. So we saw a Cincinnati take down DePaul in the game before this one. Right now, Villanova and Colorado are playing as we speak, I believe. So we'll take a look in on that one here in a second. But if you're UCF, you are advancing right now. Villanova, I just want to say for our live listeners, is up on Colorado 18-14 with 11:40 left in the first half. And then we've got a late game between Tulane and USC there at the MGM Grand. But you survive and you advance, and you're going to face off against Cincinnati there at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 Eastern tomorrow, the UCF Knights. Look, there were some unsung heroes, or maybe some sung heroes in this one. We're going to talk about our players of the game right after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On UCF is brought to you by Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order online products. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast and from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking the advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
Players of the game. We got to pick one. We're going to do this after every UCF win. Andrew, I'm going to let you go first here. Who was your locked on UCF player of the game?
Oh, I've got to go with Tyler Hendricks here. He's definitely an unsung hero. We've seen other players that had double figures, like Darius Johnson, Mustafa Cham, and Neil Mahovsky have their moments. But we haven't seen Tyler Hendricks show up, and he got the start and he made the best of it. 15 points, tied for the team lead. He had a double-double. He actually had 10 rebounds. He's the only player at double-double. Cham was a rebound short, and he did his job. He had a couple of steals. He had a block. Did not turn the ball over once, and didn't get too far into foul trouble. I think he played a solid game. Did a real good job for himself. Obviously, we remember how his brother did at UCF, and he was always buried in the depth chart. So it was nice to see Tyler Hendricks, ball out, and they need him again in the second round against Cincinnati.
They do. Look, it's hard not to pick Tyler Hendricks, but my UCF locked on UCF player of the game is Keyshawn Hall. Just kidding. He's gone. It's Tyler Hendricks.
He's gone.
Tyler Hendricks, 6 of 8 from the field. Like you said, double-double. In this one is really hard to ignore. He also added 2 steals and a block. Monster game for him in 32 minutes. He had a positive plus minus at 6. Tyler Hendricks technically in the portal, but again, the significance of Johnny Dawkins allowing guys who entered the portal to play in this game pay dividends for UCF here in this one. And you need this. You need this positive momentum headed into the offseason. And maybe this is a step towards some of these guys withdrawing their name from the portal and returning to UCF so that you feel like, okay, we're close. And if you watched this season, UCF was so close. Man, both games against Kansas, the Houston game, come on, Andrew. This team was so close to doing something special. And I think if you can go to the portal and find some pieces, we've talked about the money that's coming here in rev share. UCF, I have to say, I have been more impressed by how ahead of this process they've gotten. Like, they've been planning this earlier than almost any other school in any other Power 4 conference that and I cover a lot. And I'm telling you, I have not heard of any school being as prepared for what's coming financially as UCF. Now, can they fill that $18 million coffer or $20.5 million coffer, which will be $18 million available to them? We'll see. How much of that will they give to Johnny Dawkins? We'll see. But winning games like this, I think, is a step in the right direction to say, hey, look, if you give me a few dollars to play with, I'll go get somebody to complement. I'll get these guys to come back because, look, if you want Tyler and these guys to come back, let's not kid ourselves. Money helps, right?
You're going to have to pony up a little.
Yeah, we talked about the offers on the table for Keyshawn Hall, the Big 12's leading scorer, right? Somewhere in the areas of $2 million, possibly in NIL deals on the table for him. Get him some dollars to play with and see if they can find those pieces to push them over the edge. So I'm with you. Tyler Hendricks is my locked on UCF player of the game. UCF advances. Before we get out of here, let's take one more look. UCF advances tomorrow. I'm sorry, not tomorrow, Thursday, April the 3rd at 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 Eastern against Cincinnati. They'll play Cincinnati. You think that's going to be a tall task. Again, we'll preview that game tomorrow, but should be another fun one to watch. We'll make our picks tomorrow. I picked UCF to win this one. You picked UCF to win this one. It was closer than we thought it was going to be, but they won it.
Survive in advance. That's what it comes down to.
All it comes down to. NIL money on the line. If you don't know about this Crown basketball tournament, something unique that Fox has started here. And I think it's fun. I heard a really terrible take about, rewarding mediocrity. Come on, man. Like, this is still college sports. Let these kids have fun. Put some money on the line, man. I love this. I think this is great for college basketball. Good for UCF so far. Andrew Gluchov, before we get out of here, tell people where they can find you.
Well, you can catch me on Twitter /X or Blue Sky at StatBoyDrew. And you can catch my work on The Last Word on College Football, a part of The Last Word on Sports family.
Thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day. For your next listen, go check out our friends at Locked On Big 12. You can find Locked On Big 12 on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And you can find us here tomorrow, Locked On UCF.